we live on the internet? Let's see. Okay. Apparently we are live. Okay, welcome everyone to another episode of Subvisual Live Talks. Again, me, Zamith, with you here. Today we have a guest that, if you've seen who it is already, you'll know has a pretty interesting background, and we'll try to cover that and some more. Without further ado, I will introduce to you Miles. Miles, hi.
Hey, Luis, good to see you.
Hey. One thing I forgot to say just before, if anyone has questions, just ask them on chat, and we'll try to see them. Now, Miles, for those that don't know you, that would be here that don't know you, do you want to make a quick intro of who you are?
Yeah, my name's Miles Woodroffe. I'm the CTO at Cookpad Global. Been at Cookpad for about 10 years. Been a Rubyist probably since about 2008, something like that. Just got into Ruby and worked a lot in startups in America and Japan for the last 20 years, now based in the UK.
Cool. Yeah, I think we'll have the chance to try to dig a little bit deeper into that experience. The first question I would like to ask, though, that I always start with is, what was your first interest in tech? How do you got started in just tech programming in particular?
Yeah, that's a good question. First, I mean, I guess I'm a bit older than a lot older than you, I think. I remember my uncle had like this ZX80. It was a Sinclair computer in England. Then I got a ZX81, so 1981. My dad brought it home, and it was one of those things with like the plastic, like the keywords would be on the button. So R might be, go to, and print. You couldn't type. Basically running basic, 1K of RAM. And for some reason, he brought that home, and somehow it just really interested me. And I was, just a young 11, 12-year-old kid at that time. I just got really, really hooked on what you could do, 10 print miles, 20 go to 10, see my name all over the screen on the TV. I was like, wow, okay, I'm in.
But you did, so did you end up going to school for that, for computer science?
I have a pretty interesting path, I guess, if you want to call it that. I guess, yeah. And even as a young kid, I started writing games, even in BASIC, and then some. I don't know how many, 14, 15-year-olds are writing machine code, but I was building games with sprites and things, and I sold some games as a schoolboy. But then funny thing happened, and my best friend at the time, I think he was 16 and I was 14, and he started playing the bass guitar, and he played along to this really famous artist in the UK called Paul Weller, and he had a new band called Style Council. This is in the early 80s. And he sent this tape off, and then the guy got back to him and said, "Hey, do you want to, join the band?" But holy hell, he's going on tour around the world with this, world famous or really famous artist. So my friend Anthony, it was like, wow, this is crazy. And he came back and gave me a bass guitar he bought in Japan. And then I got hooked into music, and then all of a sudden, I don't want to do anything. I just want to do music. So I kind of quit school at 16, playing in bands, thinking I was going to get famous, become a rock star. Didn't happen. But so I missed all the kind of higher education.
Yeah.
And
playing
music.
That's interesting, because that's a debate by itself. I don't know if you want to get there, but is college really something you need to be in this profession or not? Which it's very debatable.
I guess I didn't, but I'm not sure I'd recommend my path to everyone. I ended up playing in bands and music, and I did Atari ST. I can't remember when this was. It was like an Atari computer, but it had a MIDI plug, which is like the musical instrument digital interface. You could plug keyboards in. At that time, I had a sampling keyboard, and I remember I wrote some 68,000 machine language. I wrote something where I could transfer a sample from this Prophet. I can't remember, the Prophet 5 keyboard or something, and then kind of edit it on the Atari and then send it back. I was spending way too many hours
But
geeking around
so you're
as a
saying,
teenager.
you said that you got into music and you started playing with bands, but you then was that professionally, you would say, or because at some point you moved to a sound engineer, which gets a little bit more into what you were doing that with the Atari, maybe. Um, so
Oh
how?
yeah, I wouldn't say professionally, no. That would be. I didn't have a job, if
Right,
you put
right.
it that way. But yeah, and being in a band in the '80s in the UK was a bit of a slog.
Mm,
You're just trying to get people to come to your gigs, and
right.
it's brutal if you're not very good. But yeah, I got really interested in the sound side of things, and I was working in a bar, and I only worked in this bar because I knew they had live music on all the time. It was the best place in my hometown, Coventry. I knew one day this guy is going to get sick. One day the sound guy is going to get sick, and they're going to need someone. So I got a job behind the bar. It was a biker bar as well, and 6 months, believe it or not, yeah, he got sick. Oh, Miles, we need someone, and then that was kind of the start of my career as a sound engineer. Just like trying to figure it out on the fly. Um,
And
but yeah, I got really
yeah, I was gonna ask because from then on, like you started doing it more seriously, maybe if that's the word.
yeah. Then I would say that was professional. Yeah, I was getting paid to I have my own kind of PA system. I go around kind of local gigs, and then I started working for a big company. Um, and I guess I'm trying to think. Somehow it turned into I was touring the UK with Joan Baez, who's a real old folky, but still biggest thing that happened was I started working with Bob Geldof, who's again might be too old for you, but he was in a band called Boomtown Rats. He did Live Aid, really famous in the UK, probably most famous musician in the UK at the time. And I started working with him, and then all of a sudden, people started recognizing me as a sound engineer in my hometown. And then at the same time, I was working in the studio, so I was doing studio sound, working on a lot of what was called Bhangra music at the time. So it's kind of Indian crossover hip hop. It sounds strange, but it was really awesome. Getting all these authentic tabla, dholak, and harmonium, traditional instruments, but then put over beats. And yeah, really strange path. Did a few albums there, and then then what happened? I can't remember.
So
Then
yeah, I was gonna say. So I was looking at your LinkedIn earlier, and there seems to be some overlap there between your later years as a sound engineer and early years as a web developer. Um, so I don't know. Like, I
yeah,
was wondering what that overlap was. Was it related? Were you doing web development for music stuff?
yeah, it's funny. It is now. I hadn't actually thought about it, but now it's all kind of coming back to me. I see how ridiculous this is, but I was I started working with a band called The Specials, who they were from my hometown. As a kid, they were my favorite band. They had all their records and everything. I was a massive fan, and then they got in touch with me, and I started working with them, touring all over the world, basically Japan, America, in the late '90s when the internet was really picking up. And I thought, oh, yeah, let me, on tour, you've got so much time. You've got 22 hours to kill on a tour bus
Hmm.
or in hotels, and then a gig for an hour, and then you got nothing to do. So I had a laptop, a really crappy old laptop, and I built a website for them, with Perl, I think, Perl CGI, got it working somewhere, and they were like, "Oh my god, this is amazing!" Just the worst possible. I think it's in the Wayback Machine. You can see it's horrific. But anyway, that was the entry point, and then more bands would be like, "Oh, hey, can we have one?" And then their agent said, "Oh, I sell these." What was it? He was selling some weird toys or something, and he wanted me to build him a kind of e-commerce thing. So I learned PHP, and then I was doing more and more of that at the same time as music. So I started to make probably more money from that than music,
But then
which is
was
sad.
that the point where you realized you were done with music, or well, not maybe not done because I'm sure you have some connection to music still. But what point did you decide? Okay, like the web is the thing, or just development in general, and this is my career now.
Yeah, I'd moved. I was living in America by then, and I was working in this amazing venue in Southern California, and this is where we had people like James Brown and BB King and Ray Charles. I mean, it was incredible. And some of these really older acts, it's interesting. You get a big band like Toto or something, they'll come in and they've got all their own crew, and they treat me like T-boy, got to run around and do everything for them. But when you bring in the older acts like James Brown or Ray Charles, they'd be like, of course, you're the sound guy for the venue, you do the sound. So I actually got to mix the sound and I'm just kind of pinching myself, saying, how is this even happening? Got to the stage of I've told this story to many people, so apologies. But when I got to work with Dylan, and it was the first date of his tour. So they wanted 4 days before the tour to rehearse in our venue. It was a great venue, and they said, yeah, you come in, set everything up. The band will come in, make everybody happy, and you leave, and then Bob Dylan will arrive. And then Dylan will go, and then we'll call you to come back. It's like, no way you're going to be in the same room as Bob Dylan. But I got really, really friendly with this sound guy because he's a real Anglophile, and in California you learn to lay on the English accent a bit thick. People tend to really like the English accent. And he said, "Can you do me a huge favor? Can you watch the board, soundboard while I go?" And I think the tour was going to be in the round, quadraphonic, and he had a bunch of work to do. And so his manager said, okay, don't approach him. Don't try and talk to him. Just don't imagine he's not here. So I'm, sitting behind the soundboard, and it was kind of rehearsal. So there's no one in the venue, but the band are on the stage and I'm sitting behind the soundboard. Just mind blowing. I did that for 4 days. I did actually bump into him as well, which was quite.
I was going to ask if you ended up looking at him.
When he first arrived, I was at the side of stage, and it's really dark, and they had these huge kind of stage doors at the side, and it's really dark. When it's dark and the light outside, you look up, and it kind of, your pupils go crazy. And I saw this kind of shadowy figure come, with a hood. It had a hood on. I thought, what the hell's this? And he like pulls his hood off, and it's Bob Dylan right in front of my face. So I'm like, oh my God. So I just run away. And another thing, I used to have a lot of old cars. I used to love these Karmann Gears, Volkswagen, and I was restoring them, but I had a really, really bad one at the time. And I remember getting into it to go and grab something, and Bob Dylan was just sitting there at the back. They were having their lunch or something. He was just looking at me, shaking his head. I could see in the mirror, just like, look at this idiot. But yeah, I mean, that was amazing. And then the reason, it's a long story to get to the point where the reason I once I'd done that, and I saw, I think I was about 30 then, and I saw people who were 40, 10 years on, miserable, bitter, twisted, been on the road, and I thought, this is almost me. This is going to be me in 10 years. And my brother was just living in San Francisco for some strange reason. So I thought, yeah, let me check out this technical stuff. And I just got a job, just got lucky. British company setting up in San Francisco. And I interviewed with the CEO, and he's, English guy. Okay, yeah, let's hire this idiot. And basically learned so much then. It was crazy, like a sponge. And then that was about.
You spent some time in San Francisco. You went from what I could see. So you worked at the field companies there.
Yeah, I was there for 10 years.
That's
which is quite a long
time. Yeah. Any particular story or like learning point from that time?
I think San Francisco was awesome. This was 2000, so I got there just around, there was a massive crash. So, everyone was getting laid off. It was just, it was brutal. Somehow I got a job. What was I doing? It was some kind of like big consulting company, British consulting, a bit like Accenture, but not Accenture. The kind of thing where we spent 2 years building a big supply chain management thing for a shipping company, and then $20-30 million, and they scrapped the whole thing, that kind of company. But then I kind of bumped into these people, like a ringtone company, and I ended up working with them as a very, small team, but we got to be huge. And that's where I kind of got a lot more management experience, just because there was no one else.
What technologies
That was
were you working with at that time? Was it changing, or was it mostly like PHP, you said?
that was all. I know that was all Java,
Hmm. Right,
JSPs
right.
and XSLT. Oh, it's a nightmare. It was around. I don't know if this may predate you, but there were some frameworks like Tapestry. I think Spring is still
Hmm.
around. The EJB stuff as
Yeah,
well. JBoss, that kind of era.
got it.
But we did some integration with Virgin Mobile that was just launching in America, and that went really well, and we were just serving tons and tons of ringtones. But at that time as well, I found I had a lot more free time. I shouldn't say that. I guess I was supposed to be busy, but I was sitting in an office, had the team doing stuff. And this is when I saw Ruby, and I did the classic DHH video of the
The
blog in
blog.
15
Yeah.
minutes. And I thought, let me have a go at this. And I was just blown away instantly. And I remember going out to my team, like, God, this Ruby, this Rails thing is amazing. Check that. And everybody was just, don't care. So
Yeah, not
went
Java.
back in the office. Yeah, and I built a load of reporting tools in Ruby. I thought, I got to do this. I've got to do this for the rest of my life.
So your
So
and then your first Rail job, was it Cookpad? Because it
um,
was before.
uh, yeah, I should have refreshed my memory. What
I'm
was I
asking.
doing?
So from the timeline, it was probably before. So there's some company there, but at some point you moved from San Francisco to Tokyo, right? So was that immediate?
Yes. Yeah. Oh no. So let me think. I joined a like real startup as a kind of director of engineering ish type role, and we were trying to do citizen journalism. It was around the time when I think Benazir Bhutto got assassinated. I remember we had people in over there in India or Pakistan, and texting. It was before Twitter had taken hold, and the idea was you'd text things in, and we'd aggregate these news stories.
Hmm.
Um, that was a bit of a nightmare, to be honest, but that was all Rails. And then from there, I moved to a company called Insider Pages, which is kind of just a business listing site.
Hmm.
Um, but that was a great experience as well. Just they had a pretty horrific spaghetti code, and I remember I bought the CEO of the Kent Beck book about extreme
Hmm.
programming, and he loved it. I don't know why he loved it, and he put a lot of trust in me, and we just got a whole new team, 4 engineers who just love XP and pair programming, and that was really great company. Um, but because I just had a son at the time, and my wife is Japanese, I was always interested in Japan,
Oh, okay. So
and
there's the link.
somehow
There's the. 'Cause I was wondering like what made you move to Japan like all of a sudden, but there's obviously some link there with your wife and probably before. Uh,
well, she really didn't want to move there, which was
oh,
interesting.
that's cool.
But I met the founder of Cookpad just kind of randomly at a dinner, one of Dave McClure's dinners, and yeah, we hit it off, and I really kind of got inspired by his story. What he was, very very relaxed, very low key guy, but amazing. He'd done amazingly well at that point. And this is a hint to anyone who wants to kind of impress. I remember we were talking about some idea. I think it was like a bit like Twitter, where you might post what you want to cook for a week.
Hmm.
The idea was to create a bit of peer pressure so that your friend, once you say, "Hey, I'm going to cook this tomorrow," then now you've told all your
Hmm.
maybe you might we were chatting over a coffee. But I went home back. This was in Palo Alto. I went back to San Francisco. Opened the laptop. It's like 9 o'clock, like 10 o'clock at night. Start coding. I was up all night. 6 a.m. I sent him a link to like the finished product. He could log in with Twitter, authenticate with Twitter, and it was a very basic
Hmm.
prototype. But I think he just couldn't believe it. Like, holy hell, this guy built this overnight. When I went to bed and I woke up and there were 50 like Japanese accounts created. Thing. So that's my tip if you want to do something impressive.
That makes sense. Uh,
And I moved to Japan. Yeah, that
yeah, I
was
was wondering. So you're
another.
saying that so Cookpad it was already established at the time. How big was it when you joined?
I mean, it was already just a public company, but funny, we sponsored RailsConf in 2012, and I happened to find the brochure recently, and it said something like 15 million users, and now we're over 100 million. So it puts it in
Hmm.
context. Yeah, they were very successful, had very profitable premium business. But I had been a CTO and in that role in San Francisco. But what I said to the founder, I just want to write code. I don't want any of this management BS. I'm going to be a coder, engineer. Let me join. It's going to be great. And part of the experiment as well was to bring an English speaker into the company in Japan and throw things, mix things up a bit that way.
Did you speak Japanese
Um,
at the time?
no, and even after living there 7 years, I hardly know any Japanese, and that's my excuse. Is my role was to be the English guy, but my son is fluent in Japanese after that time, but I didn't pick it up. But yeah, it was very interesting, and but pretty soon, we I kind of spun off to do a subsidiary company actually, and then we came up with this kind of global business idea. So this is what we're doing now for the last 5 years. We call it Cookpad Global. It's actually we kind of split the business. So Cookpad Japan is a whole separate kind of business unit technology stack, and then Cookpad Global is what I'm the CTO of, and what we manage from Bristol in the UK, but it's the rest of the world apart from Japan.
Got it. And so you you moved then from Japan back to the UK as part of that initiative,
Yeah,
right? A
yeah.
little bit after it started, right? So you started the initiative and then moved back. Was that planned or just happened?
No, we started it. We started it from Japan, but quickly realized, we're building a product for, the only people that can't use the product are the people in Japan because it's everywhere except
Right.
Japan. And we wanted to have a base somewhere else. And I was fortunate to be, they said just go and find somewhere. They gave me a few countries that they were interested in at the time, and I, foolishly thought, yeah, England could be good. This is the B word. I don't want to mention
Yeah.
it, but
I
this was pre then. It seemed like a good idea.
I had that question with the B word here. Um, but before that, so what was the experience going back to the like when you moved back to England? What was the experience of setting up a new office? Because I think that was a new experience for you.
Yes, and yeah, I mean, it was literally me, and I rented a desk in a co-working space, probably 3 months, just sitting on my own. And some of the team was still back in Japan, and we had some engineers in Spain and I think Indonesia at that time. I still do actually.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, it was interesting. And then the founder came over, and the kind of the managing director came over, and they both really liked Bristol. Um, it was kind of a gamble, but the confluence of kind of farming is very strong in this region. It's not London, but it's only an hour away by train. And then there's a great music scene. The university is amazing. There's lots of machine learning kind of going on. There's a lot of tech companies coming here, so it actually worked out really
Was
well.
that important
So the experience,
when looking at places to start the office, being close to universities, like
yes,
or other sort of recruiting places? Okay.
yes, yeah. I went to London. I went to Brighton, Cambridge, like 5 or 6 places. Actually, Bristol wasn't even on my list of places to come, but it just something happened, and I thought, oh, I've never been to Bristol, and it just blew me away with the food culture and the kind of the vibe. It's a big city, but a very small city feel.
Because I was
Um,
asking, I'm sure for the office for the company, it's important where you're located if you want to hire people locally. But as a business, for like as for the Cookpad website, is it important to be close to? You're saying there's farming culture there and food culture. Is that important for Cookpad website being more of a global like online presence?
I think it's just important for the kind of people that kind of are drawn to this kind of region, have that kind of home cooking. They love the environment, nature. It seems to be a good fit, and a lot of people we have engineers that have their own allotments. They grow their own vegetables.
Got it.
We do a lot of cooking in the office. Well, we did. Um, So the experience was it was just me. Then a few others came. A couple of people came from Japan and relocated. But now we're 100 people in that office
It's a
in
lot of people.
the last 3 years.
Was it hard to hire? You reckon?
We have 80 engineers, believe it or not. I think,
80, you said?
yeah,
That's a lot.
in the global team. I think it's hard to find the right people. Yeah, because I'm a really strong believer in people over, you know, accomplishments too much. You get someone who's got a lot of pizzazz but if you have to work with these people a lot, you're spending a lot of your life. 10 years I've been doing Cookpad now. You have to really have good people. So you might have 20 engineers who are amazing, but they don't quite line up with
Mhm.
the kind of the mission or the
What
values.
what sort of things in like initiatives did you set up in terms of hiring that you felt went well, or things that didn't go so well?
Uh, I think I've personally put a lot of effort into kind of conferences and supporting Ruby and Rails. I think that's where we met
Yeah,
actually in
Taiwan.
Taiwan. Yes, long time
Yeah.
ago. So we sponsored that conference, and because Cookpad, was very profitable business, we have that opportunity to support the community. We have Koichi and Endo-san both work for Cookpad, but they work full time on Ruby, the two main
Hmm.
Ruby developers. But yeah, so we've been at so many conferences, RailsConf, everything Eurico, in Portugal. Uh, I don't know, probably 20 or more. I honestly not sure there's a direct link between that and hiring.
Hmm.
If I look at our team, I think the team are proud to be involved in a company that does that. But in terms of being a great way to find people, it's hard to measure. But there's not that many people I've actually met at a conference that have joined.
Hmm.
Um, So it's interesting. I wouldn't change it because we've built this whole company on these technologies.
And
We
it's
have to
hard.
support
I
it.
think it's hard to know exactly how people get to know you, because like being noticed is important in hiring in tech, I think. And I don't know if that's the case for Cookpad, but being at conferences is one way. It
Yeah.
might or not help directly with that. One question, something that I asked before we started, but I'll ask again here live, is in terms of remote work, how does that work for Cookpad Global? Being so that it's global, you said you have some people in the Philippines, all right, and you mentioned you have someone,
Indonesia.
or
Yeah.
Indonesia, sorry, and you have someone in Portugal. You mentioned to me before.
Hmm.
So there's a few remote people. Out of those 80, do you have any idea like what the percentage is that works remotely?
I would say for engineers, it's about 15%
Okay.
ish, 20%.
Mm-hmm.
So not many. And the reason for that was a lot of focus. I mean, you have to take a different you have to take stock of what the situation we're in now in this kind of lockdown, and
Yep.
everybody's been working from home for 9 or 10 weeks, and it kind of makes you question these decisions. But the original thinking was that we're very product focused, and having people physically in the same space working on with designers and engineers very closely, it worked for us. That was the thinking. But we do have a lot of great remote engineers, and we're getting a lot better, in this situation now.
Yeah, I was going to ask that now with being forced to work remote pretty much for everyone. What's the like the evolution been, or how do you feel now about product work with like still being able to be creative and do interesting things, but in separate places? Do you think that's a position that Cookpad can have now, that you can move forward with more of a remote culture?
I think it's definitely something we're thinking about. We've really, and I got to take my hats off to the kind of the CEO and the MD here that focuses 100% been on safety. We have across globally in the global team, we have 200 people, and all they've been really concerned about is safety. So we shut down the office before anyone in the UK, I think, and we haven't really had chance to think about it. We've done a few polls about how people are finding working remotely. And we have quite a diverse workforce. So some people, it's really hard. They don't have the space at home, or they have young kids, or but yeah, it's something we're definitely going to take stock of. And to be honest, it's been going for me. It's been going great, and we haven't seen any lack of loss of momentum over these times. Aside from the kind of mental stress
Sure.
we're all under, it's not a normal situation.
Obviously. Yeah, this is a forced
Yeah,
remote. Like remote under a pandemic is not the same thing as remote in general. But um, I was
right.
gonna go ahead. Go ahead.
But I was going to say also on the flip side, of a huge kitchen. Um, and it's a great space. We host a lot of meetups, maybe 5 meetups locally. We brought people like Kent Beck to the office. Mats has been to the Endosan. Um, who else? Yeah, I mean, all kinds of great people. We really value that space, and every day when we're in the office, people are cooking because we're a cooking company. It's that's something is hard to do collectively.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, in Slack, we have what they're cooking every day to try and keep that um, that kind of togetherness around cooking, to be together.
Cool. Got it. Uh, and another question. So remote was one, and now another question related to personnel that I had was, as you mentioned before, the B word now with Brexit and that whole situation. What I'm sure that's a concern, but like, what are the plans for the future? Does that impact you a lot?
It's a mess. I mean, it's such a stupid. Yeah, I don't really get too much into
Mm-hmm.
politics, but I'm very disappointed in my fellow countrymen. Um, Even more disappointed because actually I'd been away for 20 years, away from Britain. So when the vote actually happened, I wasn't allowed to vote. Not that my vote would have mattered, but once you're away 15 years, you can't actually vote.
Oh.
Um, but yeah, it definitely, it's funny. I mean, it's just obviously this COVID thing is a massive thing. But first time I heard Brexit mentioned, I think was yesterday in the last 2 months. It's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it did before COVID. It definitely had some impact on uncertainty. If someone's going to move from France or Italy or something, um, some people like me, I'm like, yeah, whatever, I'll go anywhere. We'll figure it out. But a lot of people who are probably a bit more thoughtful than me will really think it through and be a lot more conservative.
Yeah. No,
Um,
I
in reality, it won't really change, I don't think, for Cookpad because, for instance, if you're a EU person and that we employ, or if you're someone from, we have a bunch of great engineers from Brazil.
mm-hmm.
Um, it's just a different class of visa, and it costs the company a bit more. But everyone in Europe will be the same as everyone not in Europe for
Yeah.
us, and we have a lot of people all over the world.
Yeah, it's just
But I mean, as a country, it's
just
stupid.
more legal nonsense that you have to.
More money, and I don't know. It's just embarrassing, to be honest. Why to be English around that topic?
Well, um, another question related to Cookpad Global is that I had is, at what stage would you say that Cookpad Global is? You had, or the vision that you still have? What, like, how much of it do you think it's accomplished already, and how much is left?
I think we are. This is just me personally speaking, not
Mm-hmm.
official directive. But I think we have so far to go. Maybe 5%,
Mm-hmm.
if that, of the potential. I mean, the reason I'm still here after 10 years, and there's lots of ups and downs in 10 years, but I can't think of another company. Um, Honestly, I can't really think of any other company that I could work in with this kind of mission and potential. For me, it's really really exciting, and to see it go from. I made the first commit of the code, and now we have the public number is 100 million unique people every month using our
Just
service.
Cookpad Global,
Um,
or
yeah, 100. Well, that's the official
mm-hmm.
number is
Mm-hmm.
globally, including
Okay,
Japan.
okay, okay.
But if I said that in the last 2 months things have doubled,
Hmm.
then
No,
yeah,
I'm asking. You
it's
said you did the first commit. I'm assuming that was, or I'm now assuming that there's a different code base from Cookpad Global to uh,
yeah,
Cookpad Japan.
yeah, yeah. 2015, I think, or 14. Yeah, I show that in the onboarding sessions when we bring new people on.
Is so, and
Myself a pat on the
the
back.
decision there was that it's just so different that you wanted to do like completely start from like fresh start. Uh, I'm sure they still share some things, maybe via libraries, or is there any way that you share any?
Very
Or,
little.
oh, that's interesting.
Very little. The main reason is because Cookpad is so strong in Japan. It's amazing. Having lived there, it's hard to explain, but everybody knows Cookpad. 80% of women, 80% of women in Japan use Cookpad every month.
Hmm.
It's like, Google. I remember when the Facebook team, and there were only 6 or 7 people, came to our office. I actually cooked for them, and they were, oh, we'd love to be the size of, Cookpad's amazing. How can we ever, it's such a big thing that there's some responsibility comes with that. That
Hmm.
if you come in and you start changing everything and try some cool fancy idea that might, we think is a new way of doing
Yeah.
things, we're going to upset too many people. So it was like, let's just draw a line. We've got this amazing Japan business. Let's let's do our crazy stuff in the rest of the world.
That's pretty cool you mentioned that, because that's another avenue I'd like to explore, which is how do
Hmm.
you at Cookback Global in particular, how do you explore new ideas? So let's say, well, first of all, where do new ideas come from? Um, so maybe start there. Do you do all new ideas come from customer requests? Do you is it internal research? How do these ideas usually surface?
Yeah, we have a great product team now, and basically a lot of the ideas, having been in this recipe space for 20 plus years as a company, tried everything back to front, but there's always things we can learn. So we have about 100 community managers that work all over the world, very distributed, and they're very in touch with their communities. So, in Spain or in South America or in Indonesia, so much input from real users, and everybody's cooking together. Um, so yeah, it's a combination of how we see the users using our product, but also kind of strong product vision.
Hmm.
And we're really focusing on one kind of, at the moment, we're really focused on one type of person, and then it makes things really easy because then you've got 100 ideas, but when you really focus on one use case,
Yep.
95 of them you can forget. They may be amazing, but it doesn't matter. We're really laser focused on this.
Cool.
And in terms of rolling out, we basically just use feature flagging.
Hmm.
I think I don't know if I gave that. I might have given that talk in Taiwan
Hmm.
actually. I can't remember. But yeah, very basic feature flagging system. It's got a bit more evolved actually since I implemented it. Yeah, it's got a bit more fully fledged. But yeah, we can roll out experiments to any subset of users or country or percentage.
Hmm.
And we that's how we do things. So we'll expose. Currently, there's something running in Spain. We've got something different running in Argentina. Yeah,
Yeah, I was gonna
we
my lead or my second question after that one was how do you validate ideas, and by having feature flags, basically you're saying that you experiment with like different subsets of people, like how does that work for them without trying to go for everything at once. But do you also do any sort of prototyping, any other sort of idea validation, I don't know, thing that you do?
yeah. Ahead of that, yeah, the product team will do a lot of prototyping in different kind of tools.
Hmm.
Oh, my mind's gone blank. But I think origami is used a bit, which is I think a tool that came out of Facebook.
Okay.
But it's a very very rich experience, and we actually have an API where you can actually get real data. So it kind of blurs the line between the app and the design
Hmm.
tool because you almost feel like you're using the app. So yeah, we do a lot of validation like that, and then typically we'll have a test group and then a control group because a lot of things are happening at the same time. So we want to make sure. COVID's a great example. The usage of Cookpad has changed massively in this period. So imagine you're running an experiment and then wow, traffic's gone up. Yay! My experiment's
Yeah.
amazing. well, no, actually that's COVID, or it could be Ramadan is also huge for us, or it could be Christmas. So a control group is very important to keep it
Makes sense.
honest.
Well, before we get into COVID, because I have a few questions there. Um, what is your strategy for dealing with feature flags? Because you're saying, okay, you have control groups, you have this test, but there's a common issue with feature flags, especially having too many. Well, first of all, you can have cross like references of feature flags, and then you may have invalid data. But also uh, stale feature flags is a common situation that like how do you manage knowing like which ones are still being run, and is there, do you have any like team on that, or how does that work?
Yeah, we've been pretty. I think over time we learned that that happens a lot. Like you have a feature, and then the code will just stay there forever. Nobody cares. So now, actually, in our we have a definition file that kind of we recently evolved it. I don't know if we've written a blog post about it yet, but we changed from just a feature flag. Now we have an experiment or a rollout, just to make a distinction, because an experiment, you're experimenting, who knows what's going to happen. And we always have an expiry date on on an experiment. So the team has to say, yeah, by this date, we're going to decide yes or
Mm-hmm.
no, or next step. And then in Slack, it will start bugging people.
Oh,
Hey,
okay, got it.
this team, it will tag them, say, hey, your experiment's expired. What's happening? So they have to extend it or make a good case. And then the other thing we realized was there's a rollout where we might have a feature that we've experimented and we want to only have in a certain region, but it's because of it's more of a rollout issue, not that we haven't decided, but we need to take it steady.
Yeah,
For
yeah.
kind of a good example, but
No, but I get it.
um,
I understand the difference. So yeah, that makes sense to me. In terms of COVID, you're saying that changed the use of cookpad a lot. In what ways in
yes,
particular do you think that changed? Is just, well, obviously there's more people at home, and probably more people cooking at home, but what
yeah,
else? Um,
it's kind of almost overnight, but we do have a good blog post on
mhm.
the it's medium/cookpad team, and it's about the change. It's called the changing face of Italian cooking during lockdown. It kind of gets into some of the details that our team in Italy, because they were quite early in the COVID
Yeah,
um, situation. But I'm just looking. What they found was a real marked shift right around March the 8th, when everybody's locked down and they can't they can't access bread. So all of a sudden bread recipes are spiking, or some like sourdough went 10 times up because people couldn't get yeast.
right.
It's really interesting, and you see the kind of it's all pasta, bread, and what's it? Yeah, pretty much, and pizza.
Hmm.
Those recipes, whereas before, very different. And you can see that around the world. I mean, that's one of my favorite things about Cookpad, actually. Just being inquisitive person, when you see the different behaviors around the same product, it's really interesting, and you can learn a lot. um, I've been lucky to go to some of these places as well, like Indonesia and Russia, and you meet the team and you see the environment, and you see how people live, and then you can tie it all together with how people use the service. It's
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of
So
inspiring.
cookpad, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's basically a free product to look at, right? So if I want to look up a recipe, it's free, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
well, first of all, I'm sure Cookpad Global also has the premium version. And I was just wondering what sort of things are in there.
Yeah, again, we're still. I think we classify ourselves as kind of in still in discovery mode in the global product, but we do have premium service in Indonesia, and I think somewhere Saudi Arabia, I
Hmm.
think. And it's another thing. It's kind of an experiment, but the main feature around um, the the global service premium product is around this kind of idea about proven recipes. So we have millions of recipes. It's crazy, more than 5 million globally. There might be, I don't know, 1,000, 5,000 spaghetti bolognese. Who knows which is the right one? Um, and so for free users or anyone who wants to use a site, you can search and find things but we kind of leverage those people's activities to understand which are the
Mm-hmm.
best kind of proven recipes. So
Okay.
the free product lets new recipes get a look in, and then the premium
So like
product you
a
get more proven
verified,
recipes.
like cookpad verified thing. No?
Little bit, yeah. We just call it popularity search
Yeah.
internally, but yeah, and it's actually, I was puzzled when I first heard this, way back when in Japan, but it really makes a lot of sense. It's kind of, the people using the product for free still get a great product. They do a little bit more work to discover and find great recipes and cook
Mm-hmm.
them, and then the premium users get a little bit of that
Mm-hmm.
benefit of that kind of wisdom of the crowd, and millions of people pay
Yeah,
for it, so
it feels a
somehow it
bit
works.
random when I look up recipes online, the ratings they get, even though like because even though this
Yeah,
is, I know it's very debatable, especially in recipe websites, which are all over the place. Like there's a million and one small recipe websites. So it's very
yeah.
debatable how useful the ratings are. For some reason, like that's something that I still look at. So,
And you won't see any rating on Cookpad because we don't. It's for that reason, But I'm the same. If I'm buying something on Amazon, if it's not 4, then I'm
mm-hmm.
not interested, or 4.5 or
So
something. But
so curious there. Like if I look up, you're saying let's say if I look up a pizza recipe on Cookpad, like how is that sorted so that it shows me something that makes sense? Is there any? Uh,
I mean, if there's a
yeah,
kind of a bit of a complex algorithm,
sure.
but if you're a kind of a regular user, we'll definitely prioritize newer recipes, still recipes that have been viewed a lot,
Mm,
or been clicked on in search results. But our main signal of kind of rating is something we call a cook snap. So we encourage, if I have a pizza recipe and you find my pizza recipe and cook it, we encourage you to take a photo and share that back with me.
mm,
And it's kind of it's a real nice circle of,
okay.
you enjoyed cooking, you're sharing what you cooked, you feel good, I feel good. But also implicitly, you've got 10 cook snaps on this recipe. Wow, 10 people were able to cook
Mm-hmm.
this. And this one, no one could cook. Again, I'm going to do this one. It's kind of
Yeah, got it.
it helps you. I had a great one actually. It's I think it was like a swordfish or some weird thing I cooked in Japan. The fishmonger gave me and told me just use butter, salt, or something. I added as a recipe, but then I got a cook snap from a kid and said, "Oh, I asked my mom to make this and it was great," or something. And for a split second, it made me feel really good about myself. So there's a lot of power in that mechanism from all sides. From discovery, from
Right,
making people feel happy. But yeah, so no ratings.
got it.
Interestingly, that's hard in the modern kind of Google SEO world. You get warnings that you don't have
Mm-hmm.
ratings in your recipe markup, and we're like, no, we don't do that.
Yeah, it just immediately I was thinking like, how do you get to like because when people are searching, they want the best possible. I mean, not always the best. Maybe sometimes you just want the simplest recipe. But so it's
Uh, Ultimate goal is about affinity. So someone in maybe your region, or someone you've cooked before that you really like their cooking, or someone has a similar size family. These are all signals
mm,
that we want to take into account that this is going to be right for you versus someone who's a university and they've got one pot and they like really spicy food, nothing in common. So it's
got it.
so we're working a lot of a machine learning effort right now. In the last 2 years, we've got a decent research team, decent sized research team, and I'm finally starting rolling some of that out in production, which is really exciting, really challenging. Compared to you can build a Rails site, push it to
Right.
Heroku. You're pretty confident. I know how database works. I know how this works. Machine learning is like a whole bag of questions at scale. But we got an amazing team, machine learning infrastructure team.
Cool.
We're rolling a lot of machine learning into search, doing some visual stuff around understanding the context of a recipe from a photo, which is amazing. From a photo, we can know what it is. Uh, so that's thing and experimenting on a very small
Mm.
amount of title. So understand might be there and kind of pre-fill those to help the author. So so many exciting things in the next few years from
So
machine
you're
learning.
saying you can get the ingredients from just a photo, or like just a gist of the ingredients? Probably not all, obviously.
Well, we have again, not built into the product, because this is one danger, I think, in my opinion, of machine learning, that we have an amazing team, and they've actually published a paper, and they've increased, they've gone beyond the Google capabilities on recipe matching, which is amazing because we have this massive corpus of data. But you can upload a photo and get recipe results, which is incredible. You imagine you're a restaurant, you can get the recipe, and immediately engineers are, oh my God, this is amazing. But it's not actually that useful. So how do we leverage that technology, that capability, into something that really is truly valuable for our audience? So that's the difficult part.
Right.
So we haven't actually launched that to the world yet, but it's coming soon, and the infrastructure is all there. We're kind of probably the most exciting time in Cookpad in a long time, I think, right now. For me, because I'm working closely with that team.
Got it. Yeah, so going off of that a little bit, so earlier you said that when you joined Cookpad, like you purposely said like I don't want any of that managing bullshit,
Mm.
but now that's a lot of what you do, right? So how,
Yeah.
well, first of all, how is that? And also, I was wondering if there's any things you learned along the way, any particular tip that you'd like to share for any people manager.
Yeah, be really, 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 really careful about your team, and build just bring people in that you have to work with. I always ask myself, maybe we'll get to the final interview stage with someone, and they could be great on so many angles, but I kind of think, will I be able to sleep tonight if we let this person go? Uh, it's that level of belief in someone. And the team, like I said, we have 80 engineers, but every single one of them are amazing. It's incredible. So that makes my job so easy. Whereas, other experiences I've had, not so easy,
Mm-hmm.
um, because I didn't have that luxury. It's a luxury, but it's all about the team. You have to really, really be careful about building your team. Um, and it's hard because we had a goal to hire 80 engineers, and it's just me, and I'm like, holy hell, we've got to find 79 engineers, across all these disciplines.
Mm-hmm.
But if I look at our kind of our recruiting system, 3, 4, maybe 4,000 applications, so it's not easy. There's no shortcut. Um, but you do know, and I should go back on what I said before. We have found quite a few people from conferences, not as many as I would imagine, but there's some key great people that you know uh, we've met at
Mm-hmm.
conferences. Yeah.
And do you actually steal code, or is something that you don't do anymore?
Not really. I should. Well, no, I shouldn't. I remember funny story. Yeah, this is really would be very embarrassing. Don't know why, but yeah, recently there was something pretty small. What was it? Can't remember what it was. Anyway, and I thought, oh yeah, I'll show these suckers who's boss. I'll show them what I can do. And I implemented this thing. Thought, yeah, pretty cool. And I just wasn't concentrating on what I did. And we have a system where you can basically you start off a new branch of work just on the console, and it will create a branch. It will create a pull request. It's really automated. It's really cool, actually. Um, that's a really great thing. I always remember as a coder trying to think of just a title for a pull request.
Hmm.
I'd waste minutes trying to word it, but now it's all kind of automated. But I don't know what happened. I hit the wrong key or something, and basically my change got pushed straight to production. Uh, and we have a continuous deployment, so I had to go over to the team and say, "Oh guys, oh my god, I've just pushed something to production," and they were like, "Oh, you idiot."
Well,
Luckily, it was innocuous, but
well, at least that.
yeah.
So,
But yeah, I mean, I do. I love coding. I love technology. I just don't have the time, to be honest. But
mhm.
I'm really enjoying the machine learning aspects of stuff.
Yeah, you mentioned. I'm not too familiar with machine learning stuff. It's I don't know. It feels like something. At least my opinion, working with a lot of early stage companies, it's not something that you reach to like too often when you're just trying to prove that you even have an idea that's worth having a business about. But maybe that's just my lack of understanding of machine learning.
I think it's just yeah, it's a crazy buzzword, but the opportunities to make products much better are there, but it's not easy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm to be clear, my role is more, joining the dots. I'm not doing any of the hard
Mm-hmm.
work. I'm just,
uh,
riding on the shoulders of everyone else.
I was wondering as well, like what sort of like team setup do you have at Cookpad Global or Cookpad in general? Like, how do you split teams? Is like, do you do like vertical teams, or you separate them by their roles? How does that happen?
Yeah, we've tried a few different things, but in the last this year at least, and it's going really well. So I think we'll stick with that. But we have what is it? We do have the chapter idea. So we have this idea of like the web API chapter, the Android chapter, the group of engineers.
Mm-hmm.
So they manage a lot of their best practices together. But we have product teams. So product team might depends on what they're building, but they might have a data person, web engineer, Android, iOS, product manager, designer. We have
So you have a continuous development process, or do you do like sprints and at the end of or sprints or any other sort of like of cycle where at the end you switch teams, or do you like stick people in teams like they stick together?
it changes by team. Yeah, that's a good question. It's been a discussion point because you can read a lot about who is it? The canonical example is a Gmail team. Been together 10 years or something is what I've always read. The same team that might explain a lot of things. We're trying to make sure that we have people that are really excited about the product. So if there's a certain feature that the product team want to build, we'll go to the engineering team and say, hey, this is what I want to do. Are you excited by this? And someone who's really into that thing will kind of ideally gravitate towards that product team.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to balance, when we're doing lots of things, but that's our goal,
Do
just to align the excitement.
do engineers also have like a way to loop in their own ideas into product, or is it a top-down approach in terms of
I think we're getting more to that. I mean, that's what we've been trying to build. That kind of having the engineers be a lot more engaged. So I think that's happening. Whether they're coming up with product ideas specifically, because we have a product team,
Mm-hmm.
but they'll work
No, I
together.
mean,
They'll work
I
together
mean,
on features.
not necessarily like a full feature, maybe, but like while working on a feature, I'm sure like developers will figure out, oh, there's this thing that wasn't really considered. Like, how do we approach this? I have some ideas. Like, how does that get into incorporated with the overall work?
Oh yeah, I mean, they're just working together as a
Mm.
team very closely. So lots of releases. We have like a staging environment, and we have we have a separate build of the apps, so we can deploy to some alpha testers. You could have
Mm-hmm.
20 people testing a different version of the app, update every day. So we try and work pretty quickly. But you asked about sprints. Yeah, different teams do different
Mm-hmm.
things. It's pretty much what the team want to work. We're using the OKR system, which is
Mm-hmm.
objectives and key
Yep.
results. And we've tried with limited success, to be honest, over the last few years. But I think we're in a much better space now. We had a great session with Felipe Castro, who's an eminent OKR
Mm-hmm.
trainer. He came over, and I think definitely got some more perspective from that.
Interesting.
Yeah, keeping honest with the objectives and the results, and keeping focus is the key.
Yeah. No, I'm familiar with the concept, and we've been doing it for a while, and we also face some issues. So it probably, like, yeah, if you end up writing a blog post on the learnings there, like that's probably interesting as well for us personally.
Yeah, definitely check out Felipe Castro as well.
Hmm.
He knows what he's talking about. He's got lots of.
Cool.
He's definitely got a book at least.
Uh,
Yeah.
Miles, we're just hit the hour marker. So I was just gonna ask
Oh
if
wow.
there's, yeah, it went fast. If there's anything else in particular like that you wanna say. I don't know if you Cookpad is hiring and you wanna plug that.
Yeah, we're always looking for great people. If you love cooking and really want to change the world, kind of we it's so many people kind of ordering food, and it's really easy to be lazy and get something delivered to your house. But if you're really passionate about cooking and food, we want everyone in the world to cook. So we got 100 million users every month, but there's another 6.9 billion.
Waiting.
So we have a long way to
Yeah.
go.
Okay, Miles.
But yeah, it's been great.
Thanks for taking the time to do this. It was really interesting. At least for me, it was.
Yeah, no worries. Hopefully not too boring.
Okay, see you in a bit.
Yeah.
Uh, okay, everyone. This was another edition of Subvisual Live Talks. Um, if you like this and if you're interested in seeing more, please subscribe in any of these channels here, both about Subvisual Live Talks and Subvisual in general. We are hiring. If you're looking for a job, in particular, we're looking for a front-end developer. You can check us out. You can check it out at medium.com/slash subvisual. There will be a blog post about that. And see you next week, same time, same day. Have a nice weekend. See you guys.